Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Krendor, and welcome back to Krendor Talks in front of a shitty green screen. Today, I'm talking about the pile of shame, because every Warhammer player's got one, unless you've literally just started. But still, there's probably some people just started, just like, I gotta buy a bunch of stuff, this is awesome, right? And so, it's in the name, right? Pile of shame, right? This is a pile of stuff that you're shameful about. Well, why are you shameful about it? Right? It's because you've bought something that you thought was cool and that you didn't have time to build or paint or whatever it might be, right? I think piles of shame can also be in different styles. Some people would say it's a pile of shame is boxes that are like unopened, right? Some people would say it's models you haven't built. Some people would say it's unpainted models, right? Like there's so many different styles of piles of shame there can be. But to me, it's kind of just, it's up to interpretation. It's whatever makes you feel shameful. And even then, I think there's something to be said about why you should feel shameful about it, right? Like, I don't necessarily think you should feel bad about having a pile of shame. Because, for example, my pile of shame used to be much bigger than what it is. You know, right now, it's about 3 boxes of stuff. Right? Like 3 big containers of just boxes of unbuilt stuff. Now, that doesn't mean I'm never going to build it. And some of it I did get sent by Games Workshop and that I didn't build. And some of it is just, I don't know, there's just a bunch of random stuff in there. Some's like, there's like, for example, I have a box of Unbuilt Trees. But part of the reason is because one of my friends sold me his Sylvaneth trees. So I was like, well, I don't got to build these now. So I've just had some trees sitting in the box, right? Well, maybe one day I'll need more trees and I'll be like, I got to build these, right? But until then, they can sit in the box. And then I have a box of Tyranids, which when the new edition comes out, I'm probably going to build that entire box. It's a pile of shame right now, technically, but it has hope. You know what I mean? Like it's got a future. I'm like, I see the future of this box, of this pile of shame. And then some of it's like, oh, I thought this unit would be really cool. And then, or maybe I'm like, this model's gonna be really cool, or it's gonna play well in the game. And then, I get to it and it gets nerfed, or I end up playing a different army, or I just kind of move past it, move on, or something happens, right? And I'm just like, whatever, and I just throw it away in the box and let it sit there. I mean, I could build it, paint it, or whatever. Maybe if I think it's a really cool model, I would do that, but a lot of times it's just easier to be like, hey, you know what? Put it away, and then in another day, I'll get to it, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think people have piles of shame because they just get really excited and want to play and paint and use cool models. Like, that's what it boils down to, right? Like, it's excitement. It's almost an overexcitement, and then you end up buying too much, and you can't do it all at once. Or maybe you're busy with life, or, work, family, etc. And then that's that. It just sits there, and you're like, I'll get to it one day. You know what I mean? And maybe, you go away from the hobby for a bit, and maybe you come back, and you're overwhelmed with so much stuff. I think that's probably another thing that can happen. You build up this big pile, and then you get overwhelmed. You come back to it, and you're like, I don't know what to build, so I end up doing nothing. That's a common thing in, like, just every aspect of life. Some people are like, I have so many things to do, and then they end up doing none of them because you're overwhelmed. And the best thing to do is, like, pick one. You have to, like, focus in, right? Like, I'm going to paint, or I'm going to build this storm vermin. Right? I'm going to build these storm vermin. Nothing else matters. I'm going to build them. I'm going to paint them. That's it, right? And then boom, you got one thing done. You got those. And then maybe that motivates you to do something else. I think that's one of the ways to kind of conquer the pile of shame, right? But I still think that unless this is like a problem, you know what I mean? Like, unless you're like in debt and you're still buying models and still buying stuff, you shouldn't really feel ashamed about it, right? Like, you're essentially just investing in the future hobby you. The future hobby you. And that's like anything, right? Like, what if somebody buys a bunch of colored pencils because they want to draw, and then they sit there? It's kind of the same thing, right? Like, they're investing in a hobby. They want to do it at some point because they know they're going to enjoy it. It's going to be relaxing, but they just can't find the time. You know, what's the difference between that and a pile of unbuilt models? It's another thing. And so I think you need to realize that at any point you can just work on that. And there's nothing shameful about it as long as it's not, you know, breaking the bank or ruining your life. And I would hope for the most part that it's not. You know, as much as people complain about the hobby being expensive or pricey and all that, I still think it's not too bad as long as you don't go crazy. I mean, you can pick an army and go with that army, and it still probably costs as much as going to like a sporting event. And that, you don't even get, you know, rats. You just get to go to the sporting event. You pay for parking, you pay for food, you pay for your like $30 beer, and you watch your team, you got the tickets, and before you know it, you know, to go to a sporting game, it's like $200 to $400. You know what I mean? So for the same price, you can get, you know, paints and a bunch of models and, you know, all the tools you need, and you've got an army that you can use. And even then, down the line, you could always sell it. There's plenty of people that sell the armies they have. So what's the point of this video, Krendor? Why did you even make this video? Because I wanted to make people feel better about their piles of shame. Maybe I'm just talking to myself as well. I'm trying to make myself feel better about my pile of shame, even though it has grown less over the years, because every time a new Battletomes come out, I've ended up building part of that backlog. So I'm like, oh, the Beastlord Raider or Beastclaw Raiders are part of Ogres, and they're fun now. I'm going to build them, so I do that. And then I'm like, oh, they released the Beast of Chaos. So I actually built all my old Beast of Chaos stuff I'd never touched in years. Gloomspite Gits, they were part of the pile of shame. Now they're all built, right? So like as these books come out, as time goes on, you know, the pile shrinks, and I slowly run out of things that I actually want to buy and build because I've then built a lot of them, which is a good thing for me. You know, I'm not a big, as you probably know, I'm not a big human person in fantasy and partially in real life. And so just, you know, I've gotten most of the armies I want. Same with 40k. You know, I got my Tyranid, Necron, and Orc. That's all I really need. You know, I also have some Chaos Knights. I'll probably build those, but that's like it. You know, nobody else really interests me that much, but we'll see what happens with the new edition. But I kind of like it that way, because now I've done all my building for all the armies that I've wanted, and now I can move on to the painting part of the backlog. And that's going to be, it's going to be a lot. So either way, let me know down in the comments section below your pile of shame size. And, you know, do you feel bad about it? Do you feel ashamed of it? Or are you trying to work through it? Or just tell me about it. I'm curious now because, you know, I always hear about everybody's piles of shame, but I'm curious how big your pile of shame is. And that's all I got. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay? Okay. See ya.